Since you focus so much on China's rise, I'm curious to know your thoughts on why China, in the middle of a global pandemic, has opened so many fronts. When Xi Jinping is already under international flak and scrutiny, we've seen pressure on Australia, we've seen pressure in the South China Sea, we've seen skirmishes and a lot of back and forth with Japan, with Taiwan. We're seeing new security laws in Hong Kong. So why is it that in the middle of a huge global crisis, in your view, has China opened so many fronts simultaneously?
Well, that's a great question, and of course, because China's a fairly closed society, it's hard to be sure. But I think there are a couple of plausible ways of looking at it. One is that if you go back to the beginning of this crisis in January, December, it had the possibility of building into a domestic political crisis for Xi Jinping. And whatever his priorities, priority number one is keeping himself in power and keeping the Communist Party in power. And you had, at the time, you remember the incident of the doctor in Wuhan who died so tragically and whose last words were about really essentially pointing the finger at the Chinese system, saying a system in which only one voice and one interpretation is heard is not a healthy system. And there was a big outpouring of emotion on the Chinese internet aimed at the government and aimed at its mishandling of this and the harassing of doctors and dissidents who had complained or tried to draw attention to what was happening in Wuhan. And that was a very dangerous moment for Xi Jinping. So I think that in domestic terms, it kind of made sense for him to start trying to focus some of that anger, some of that emotion outwards, and to say, look, the outside world is unfairly blaming this on China, to begin to float ideas without much foundation that maybe this disease did not originate in China, maybe it was imported by the Americans, getting those kinds of conspiracy theories going, and then to say, look, China is being unfairly picked on by the likes of Australia, the United States, and so on. And that then deflects attention outwards. And then I think that, you know, another thing that's possible, I wouldn't want to put it stronger than that, is that the Chinese government has a number of strategic objectives in Asia, and you ticked off a number of the areas where they're being more aggressive, from Hong Kong to Taiwan and now the Indian border. And they may feel that a outside world that is grappling with a global health emergency plus the massive economic downturn that goes with that is much less likely to respond, because it's got so many other problems. The US also now has a presidential election, the whole furore around Black Lives Matter, it's in turmoil. And so the chances of America mustering the concentration to respond to this variety of Chinese challenges and to rally international support are lessened. So maybe the government in Beijing feels, okay, now's the time where we can really be more aggressive on a number of fronts and create facts on the ground, facts in the water, facts in Hong Kong, and get away with it.